day, my listeners. Welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And I am your host. I am Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And for those new listeners, my prior listeners, they know what this is about, but I just want to say it again what this podcast is all about. Or for my listeners who are ready, really ready to move forward in their lives, ready to overcome those obstacles, ready to mitigate those self imposed barriers that's preventing you from living your best life on your terms. And we talk about topics related to personal and business development and even self improvement. And today, check this out. I love this topic. How you get in your way with craptaculous boundaries. And who best to talk about this is Heather Claus. I can't wait to hear all about this. And let's welcome Heather to Is Your Way in Your Way. Hi, Heather.
Hello, Cassandra. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. Not craptaculous, but fantastic. That's how I'm doing today.
Fantastic is many steps above craptaculous.
Yes, just the syllable I could imagine. So prior to my listeners, I'm going to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to read a little bit about Heather so you can get to know her a bit. And Heather has lived an atypical life. She's hitchhiked across the country, traveled and worked in a carnival for a season, roamed New York City and street people, explored and even taught alternative lifestyles and more. All of her experiences thus far have led her to the belief that boundaries are the key to not only saving ourselves, but our relationships. She's a big fan of amazing people enjoying love, sex, and romance and happy and functional lives, whatever that might look like from human to human, which is why she's thrilled to share her experience and knowledge of boundaries with us on this podcast today. And my first question to you, Heather, is would you share a bit about your personal journey that has led you to where you are today?
Absolutely. So, obviously, I've been the adventurous sort. I have really enjoyed life. I've been the sort that says, why not instead of why a
Mhm.
lot. And I ended up in my earlier years getting married to a wonderful man at the beginning.
Mhm.
You all know how this works. And turns out that he had some, unbeknownst to him, mental disorders that led
Mhm.
him to alcoholism
Mhm.
and emotional abuse.
Mm.
So I found myself trying to save a relationship all by myself.
Yeah.
And through this abuse, I ended up eventually leaving and taking some time. I took a year after that
Mhm.
to myself. Like I pretty much didn't socialize at all. I
Yeah.
walked my dogs. I pondered. I thought. I wrote. And then after
Mm.
that year of cocooning, I came
Mhm.
out, and the next year I went on 127 first dates.
Wow, you counted them.
Well, after so many, I was like, you know what? I should probably, kind of see what
Wow.
this is all, because, I've always been a storyteller.
Yeah.
So, having an actual number matters. And then I got into what I call my rebound relationship, which was the exact
Mm.
opposite of
Okay.
my ex-husband. My ex-husband was fiery and passionate. I ended up with somebody calm and
Mm.
steady.
Okay.
And about 4.5 years later, I was bored silly.
Mm.
So
Okay.
ended that relationship, and not long after met somebody who just knocked me off of my feet.
Wow.
And I was scared beyond belief that I was going to screw this up,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Like I wanted this to be right. And so the very first thing I did. When I realized like this had potential, as I said to him, I said, look, I want it all. I want the romance. I want the passion. I want the friendship. I want us to be true collaborators and partners.
Mm-hmm.
I want everything. And I think he thought I was just a little crazy at the
Yeah.
time, but
Yeah.
he's like, well, what have I got to lose? You know, he'd been through relationships that didn't work as well. And
Sure.
so we jumped in and we started setting our boundaries and negotiating and communicating. And here we are a little over 10 years later. And I realized that I spent years not only creating sort of a system for amazing personal development and good relationships,
Yeah.
but I've also been writing over that whole time and putting those ideas out into the internet and getting feedback and talking with people and coaching them and mentoring them and helping them. So last year, my 49th year,
Okay.
I was diagnosed with a really nasty BRCA1 genetic mutation, and I went in for prophylactic surgery, got all of my lady bits, the baby factory removed, had a double mastectomy and reconstruction.
Oh,
and preparing for that, the month of my 49th birthday, I decided I was going to take a sabbatical and work on a passion project. And my new book, Take No Shit, it was my passion project. And so got it done and super excited to share it with the world.
Well, wow, Heather. Let me ask you now, based on the number of relationships that you've been in, and I remember you saying, I've read about how some of them said you wanted too much, you had unrealistic expectations. And so once you experience things of that nature, you start having limiting beliefs. And those limiting beliefs can have you stuck. And before we move on, I would love to know, how did you overcome that? You know, because my listeners, even I've gotten stuck in relationships because, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe my expectations are too high, so maybe I should downplay them. How did you overcome that?
Well, it was actually, you know, so that first marriage, which is actually my only marriage, but that first marriage of mine, I had these high expectations, and my ex-husband kept telling me, you have no right to ask that of me. You want too much, like that's impossible, whatever. Then my next partnership, you know, I got the same thing from somebody who was radically different.
Right.
But it was still the same crap.
Yeah.
And after those relationships, you know, when I was sitting there thinking about, gosh darn it, I really like this guy and I don't want to screw this up. The other part of it was, but I also don't want to end up in another dead end relationship, and I don't want to be abused. And is a relationship even worth it if it doesn't meet what I consider basic standards that the two previous relationships were like, why should we talk when you want to talk about things?
Right.
Like, to me, that's kind of like bare minimum.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, to me, it's like, well, do I really want that at all? And my answer to me was, I feel like if I'm in a relationship, so I've created what I call the definition of a successful relationship, which is two people who get far more out of the relationship than they put in. So if I put in $1, I get $10 back. If he puts in $1, he gets $10 back in emotional support, in love, in whatever. And that means we have to be super compatible, and the things we do fill each other up naturally. Right?
Yeah.
Because life is going to drain us. And if
Yeah,
we're just treading water, or if our relationships are draining us, life is gonna suck.
exactly. You're exactly right. So hey, so this is just perfect because you said that you wanted to create a world where more people know and understand good boundaries for
Yes.
all of us. So what are boundaries? What are boundaries?
So for me, I like to describe boundaries as the realization, the expression of personal power.
Okay.
So boundaries, if you think of a boundary like the boundary of the state you live in, it simply divides what is that state, all the
Hmm.
good things, all the bad things, all the traditions, all the culture, all the food from what is another state, right?
Hmm.
So boundaries are pretty much the same thing. Everything inside, those are the things I want to prioritize, the things I want more of, right? And a
Okay.
lot of people think of boundaries as only the negative stuff. Those are outside your boundaries. Those are the things I don't want in my life or the things I want less of in my life, right?
Okay.
So
Hmm.
outside of these boundaries, that's where everyone else has to take care of their own ish.
Okay. That's right.
So your big mad, for example, a partner is big mad. That is outside my boundaries unless that person can articulate it in such a way that I can say, yeah, you know what? I screwed the pooch on that one. I'm owning it. That is mine to fix.
Okay.
Right. But you come home and your partner's in a crappy mood
Yeah.
and they're just like, no matter what you do, they're like, rah, 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 unless you, and we've all done this,
Okay.
work really hard to cheer them up. What can I do for you, baby? Like, no,
Oh,
that is theirs to fix.
draining.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
that's theirs to fix. Mine is, oh, babe, you have a craptaculous day. I get it. I'll leave you alone. Or if you need something from me, let me know. I'll
Okay.
have dinner, at 8. I love to cook. So I generally do the cooking in my household. I'll have dinner ready at 8. You can eat it alone if you'd like to, or you can eat it with me. I'll just chill with a book over here.
Okay. Okay.
Let them have their space. And if they want to talk about it, or if it's something that I could help with, they can make that request.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. Of course, I don't stomp around the house and expect them to go, oh, baby, what can I do for you? Let me make you feel better. Let me throw chocolate and roses at you. Like, no, I'm an
Right.
adult too.
Yeah.
Like, I can handle my own stuff, and I do. And if I'm upset about something, I'm going to say, hey, babe, that thing you did, I don't like it.
Right.
Can we talk
Okay.
about not doing that in the future?
Now, would you say, now, how did you say, I know you talked about there's simple steps, but
Yeah.
how do people know? I mean, how can they conjure up or how will they find out what their boundaries are?
So,
Because as you
yeah.
stated earlier, we don't grow up with them. A lot of times we don't. So how do they know how to create them? Like what's best for them? How can they figure that out?
So, in my book, the first step 1, is set your boundaries. And I go
Okay.
through the 6 different types of boundaries, and each one of those chapters has dozens of questions to help get
Okay.
you started. I also, you mentioned earlier that you were really interested in the app. So we also have an app, which is
Okay.
a daily boundaries journaling app, which is take no asterisk, 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 asterisk.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a daily boundaries journaling app where it literally asks you a boundaries question every day.
Mm-hmm.
You can answer it and either keep your answer private or share it on the feed and learn from
Okay.
what other people answer as well. And you can sort of like over the months sort of track how you're feeling about your different boundaries. And that's your time boundaries, your
Yeah.
material boundaries, your sexual boundaries, your physical boundaries, your emotional boundaries, and your intellectual boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But
Okay.
there's also one other way.
What?
Look back over your past relationships.
Yeah.
Figure out what drained you.
Mm.
What upset you? What frustrated you? And those things are usually, those feelings are
Yeah.
usually going to point towards where people are crossing your boundaries, or, and here's where it gets really tricky, where you stomped your own boundaries in order to gain somebody's love and affection.
Mm.
And that is where we all get in our own way, right? Even
Yes.
before they push against something, we think, maybe that doesn't matter as much, because if I do that, they might not like me. So I'm not going to do that. And then at the end of the relationship, we end up feeling used and abused and not, appreciated for who we are. And that's because we used and abused ourselves in a lot of ways. And we didn't even appreciate ourselves enough to show up authentically.
Yeah. So, all right. So this is some good stuff. Let's say they're learning this have no sh asterisk t, right? And they loving the app. They're going through the app, writing down what their boundaries are, and they're in a relationship already. Okay. And what they're finding is it's not working, based on the homework, based on what Heather has taught us, that makes us a happier, better person, or not necessarily better, but and they able to live their life, their best life. How do they? Is there a way that you would suggest they? I don't know if you get out of it, or do you set the boundaries then say, look, we've been doing this for quite some time, and I want to have a better, happier life.
Yeah.
We need to. How do they go about doing that?
So step one is to set your boundaries.
Right.
Step two is say it. Say your boundaries to the other person.
Okay.
So, that would be like, hey, when you call me sugar britches, I hate that. My ex called me sugar britches, and it just reminds me of them. And please don't ever call me sugar britches again. Right.
Okay.
So then step three would be review it. Did they stop calling you sugar britches and say, oh crap, well, we don't want you thinking about your ex when you're with me, right?
Exactly.
So I'm not going to do that. Or did they push back? Did they say, come on, it's just a nickname. It's not that big a deal, right?
Yeah.
So did they stop? And did you feel validated?
Okay.
If the answer is yes, that's all you need to do.
Okay.
If the answer is no, then step 4 is repeat it. Maybe it wasn't a good time that you talked to them. Maybe you weren't super clear about how it makes you feel. Maybe they just don't understand, or maybe it's something that happens so habitually with them that they need a little reminder, right? And then if it's still not changing, then step 5 is change. You change. You change what you're willing to accept.
Okay.
Or you change the circumstances, which might mean changing the relationship. It might mean changing how you act in the relationship. So when I was younger, a friend of mine, and I think I was 8 maybe or something like that, a friend of mine used to call me Heath. Heath. I hated it. Heath. And I asked him over and over and over again, don't call me that. And of course he would laugh because, this is what kids do, right? And call me Heath again. So I said to my dad, I'm like, I hate this. And he says, well, just don't answer. So when he called me Heath, I just pretended like I hadn't heard him.
Yeah.
And so he'd keep trying to get my attention. And I'd just pretend like I hadn't heard him until he said Heather. And then I'd be like, oh, hey, yeah, what?
Oh, okay.
Right. And eventually he got the point. Either we were going to be friends and he was going to call me Heather, or he could keep getting in his own way and doing something that was harming the relationship.
Right.
So we can do that. Like, that's something that we can try, is we can just say, okay, well, I'm going to go my own way in this particular thing. And I'm going to see if they're going to follow me, or if they're going to sit stubbornly exactly where they are and pout about it.
Right. Okay.
Or I'm going to leave.
Right.
That's also a possibility.
Exactly. That's definitely an option. You talked about And I never thought of it like this, that love is a skill.
Yeah. Yeah, of course it is.
Tell the audience what's a skill. Interesting. I should have,
Look up-
listen, I should have talked to you years ago about this thing, you know?
Well, I should have talked to me years ago. So if you think about it, like if you define love through the dictionary, my favorite definition of love is stripped of all its expectations. It's simply a warm feeling of affection, right?
Yeah.
Stripped of everything.
Mhm.
But when we talk about love as a verb, like playing tennis or like, mountain biking or whatever
Mhm.
it is, that's a skill. And although we can very, very much feel warm feelings of affection towards
Yeah.
people, our socialization, the way that we've been raised, has been a lot of control or be controlled in our
Mhm.
relationships. We
Mhm.
leave our parents and we go out looking for somebody to create a very specific life that we have in our heads.
Yeah.
And so does the other person. So
Yeah.
we get together and both of us are battling to create this life that we both think is supposed to happen and to fit the other person into it, rather than coming together and saying, here's what I want out of a relationship. Like it's a Venn diagram, the sweet spot, I call it.
Okay.
Here's one circle. Here's what I want out of a relationship. The other circle is here's what you want out of a relationship.
Okay.
Where we overlap, that's the sweet spot.
That's the sweet spot.
And like my partner and I, we overlap at like 85%. He loves mountain biking. I don't mountain bike. He
Okay.
does that with his friends. Like he goes out. I make sure like we have time for that in our lives because that's important to him. But it's not part of the relationship that he and I have. It's simply a part of our combined life. And I think that that's really critical when we look at, okay, what is our relationship? Because doing the dishes, yeah, of course the dishes have to be done, but the dishes would have to be done whether we were in a relationship or not.
Yes.
Right. So whoever does the dishes, that's going to have to be done whether or not we're together. Somebody has to do the freaking dishes or you have bugs.
Yes.
Right. Somebody has to clean the floor. Somebody has to do the laundry. How we engage with these things and negotiate who does what, and then how we collaborate on building the best life possible, including the part that is our relationship, our passion, our love, our connection, and then all this other stuff that is life maintenance that we simply have to do together, right?
Exactly.
Or divide up.
Exactly. So, with this podcast being Is Your Way in Your Way? And we want to get, how do we get in your way with craptaculous boundaries?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. So when it comes to boundaries, right, we have been taught that if we're difficult, people won't love us. Right. If we speak up, people tell us to shush and to get along. If we fight for what's ours, people tell us that we should share more and be more generous.
Yeah.
If we kick somebody out because, they're not treating us well, people tell us that we're not being nice enough or we didn't give them enough of a chance.
Yeah.
And when we're in relationships, people tell us that we're too much or we're not enough or we talk too much or we don't talk enough or, whatever it is, right? And we take this information on as truth.
Yeah.
So we end up like not really knowing why we do the things we do in relationships, especially. We don't know why we act this way. But if we look back to what we have been taught by previous relationships, we act that way because we've been taught that. And here's the thing. The people who taught us a lot of this stuff, like our parents have taught us some of this stuff. The people who love us and have taught us this stuff are wrong. They were taught the same thing.
Sure.
and they just passed it on, but it wasn't working for most of them either.
Yes, that's correct.
And then there are the people in our lives who they might have loved us, but they also wanted to control us. So they taught us the things that they needed us to believe in order to control us, right? You're too much. You need to calm down. You need to stop being so exuberant. It's embarrassing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's control.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is I've always been this person, and you were attracted to me at some point.
Yeah.
So I know that this is you trying to control me. And that becomes people who love us, but maybe don't want the best for us, are trying to teach us about like how not to have good boundaries. And then we take these beliefs forward and we try to people please, and we try to jump in to save others. And we believe that we're not good enough, and we don't trust ourselves. So therefore it's hard to trust other people. Mm-hmm. We fall hard and fast for people, usually the wrong people. We're too nice, or we're too rude because we're afraid of getting hurt. We care too much about what people think. We get caught up in pointless arguments for no reason. We lose ourselves and who we are in relationships. And we have a hard time saying no.
Right.
And so we get into these relationships and somebody mentions, oh, I don't really like that thing. And that thing is important to us. And so we say, oh, I guess I just, it's not really that important. I guess I just won't mention that.
Yes.
Right. And so we have just stomped our own boundary. We have just become less authentic.
Yeah.
In the hopes that this person will love us.
Right.
But then that person loves an us that doesn't exist, or only part of us.
But Heather, what do you think, as listening to you makes me think of how women don't want to be by themselves, so they will like it take certain things because they don't. Is like, how can they get out of that? I mean, I don't know if it's, maybe they need to see a therapist. I don't know. But either they like the bad boys is another one. Love the bad boys. Or just like, well, I guess I'm just being too hard. Like we said before, my expectations are too high. I'm just thinking, when I'm thinking about my listeners, and they could be in relationships has them stuck, preventing them from moving forward and doing what it is that they want to do, but yet they have this struggle of getting out of it. Why do you think that is?
Well, okay. I mean, the first thing I want to point out is it's funny that you say, that women don't like to be alone. I don't know many humans at all of any gender who want to be alone. This is why we screw things up so badly.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay.
So one thing I would like to say is when you stomp your boundaries in relationships, or when you allow somebody else to walk over your boundaries in relationships, you are you're more alone than ever, because not only are you in a relationship where you're not getting fulfilled, but you're also not able to be yourself.
Yeah.
Right. You're constantly watching what you do in order to keep that relationship going at all costs. And you don't have any room in your life for authentic relationships that really love who you are to manifest themselves or to come into your life. And the thing is good boundaries. So remember, I talked about, boundaries separate, the things you prioritize and the things that you want less of or don't want in your life. Well, by maintaining the energy of not giving energy to the things you have no control over and the things that you don't want in your life, you have a lot more energy for the things that you prioritize.
Yeah.
A lot more energy for the things and the people that you love or that you adore or that you want to spend more time with in your life. So you become more energetic, more charismatic, more able to communicate how much you want people in your life. And we all know somebody like this.
Yeah.
Every single one of us has that friend or has had that friend in the past who was unrepentantly themselves and they got away with some stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Because everybody was like, wow, they're a little out there, but boy, are they amazing to be around, because you know when you're around them that they are exactly who they are. Right? You know, if they tell you, you know, I really like you, you feel that.
Yes.
Because they mean it and they say it with, you know, all the power of their personal conviction.
Yeah.
Boundaries are what allow that. Right? I say no to the things I don't want so that I can say yes more often to the things I do. So that is, to me, the personal standard. And you might find yourself out of X relationship that's not filling you up and find yourself creating new connections, friendships, lovers, date mates, partners, whatever, with people who love those standards.
Yes.
Also, I'd like to just mention on the whole bad boys thing.
Yes.
Because so my partner, he doesn't look like a bad boy. He looks like a boy next door.
Okay.
And the first night I met him, I was like, oh, you know, he's cute. Not my type.
Yes.
Like, I like them like gods, you know.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the night, when he said goodbye, he gave me a hug. And that hug was like, bam.
Wow.
Holy fudge buckets. That's a good hug. And I thought, but I wasn't ready to, like, you know, give him a gold star or anything. Here's the thing. There are plenty of men who can be what we look for in a bad boy: passionate, exciting, adventurous, and also loving, doting, friendly, charismatic, responsible human beings. Like, don't settle for the crappy part of bad boys when you could have women, right? Like, there are plenty of women out there who are super passionate and super fun, you know, in bed with the right person.
Right.
And they have a job and a car and they keep their lives together. Why would we settle for less in men? And vice versa. Why would these men who can offer all of that, offer the protection, offer the, you know, like, love and the passion, why would they settle for women who just give them good sex and don't offer that full partnership and companionship?
Right.
We all think that it's not out there, and it is. And the more of us that set good boundaries around our lives and we show up authentically, the more of that there is.
Right.
And the more we can connect with the right people.
Yeah, because one of the other things I was going to say is, I hear this all the time. There's just not enough men out there, you know, so they feel as it's a shortage. But what I'm hearing you say is, once you define what your boundaries are, you're able to be yourself. You can attract. It's amazing. They can come out of the woodwork. Like, where has he been?
Absolutely.
Yeah, rather than this mindset, there's not enough of them, you know, so therefore I'm going to settle.
Who are you not being, right? As soon as you settle, you're taking up space in your life with somebody who's not filling you up.
Right.
So you're losing what it takes to attract the people who would fill you up, because you're not going to have what it takes to show up for them.
Exactly. So let's change the narrative, right?
100%.
Yeah, yeah. So Heather, I'd like for you to give a takeaway for my listeners on something they could um, do now, to kind of like a call to action,
Yeah,
not later, but like after listening to
right
this,
now.
yeah, exactly. What
Yep.
is
So I
it?
got the perfect thing. This is one of the things I do with my coaching clients.
Okay.
Usually, when they're saying, "I want a better relationship," usually the ones that, especially the ones who have just left a relationship or had a relationship leave them or lost their partner due to death, or they want to start a different life, right? So when they're starting
Yeah.
fresh.
Yeah.
But it's also good if you're in a relationship. So there's two pieces of paper. The first piece of paper, you draw a line down the center. On
Okay.
one side, you put, these are the things that fill me up in this
Okay.
relationship or in my most recent relationship, right? And
Okay.
then on the other side, you put, these are the things that drain me
Okay.
in this relationship or in my most recent relationship. And you're going to start to really see and don't do this like all at once. Don't think you're going to sit down and you're going to be like, I got that done. No. Like, leave that piece of paper where you can find it, in a journal or whatever, and keep adding to it when you think about it. You could do it on your phone, in your notes app, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
The second piece of paper,
Mm-hmm.
write in what would be in an ideal relationship. And I'm not talking about he's 6'3" and like he's got a killer smile or whatever. I'm talking about, I feel validated. I feel loved.
Okay.
I feel desired. When I communicate, something is important to me, they listen and
Yeah.
engage with me. If there's something that they don't agree with me on, they're willing to say it and not be mean. They're compassionate. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I really do like you as well because of my, responsibilities. I can really only do 3 nights a week, right? Like, I want 5 nights a week. They're saying 3 nights a week because they have life and responsibilities.
Exactly.
How many women, for example, are going to say, oh, well, they're no good, they don't want me, when you're looking at a man who has responsibilities and is willing to show up for them?
Exactly.
Things like this. So, like, how do we judge? What do we value in our relationships? Because I will tell you this, in our relationships, no matter how wonderful or not so wonderful they are right now, we are living our priorities. And if our priority is to never be alone, if that priority is more important than everything else, that's going to show up.
Okay. So we need to revisit those priorities, or maybe not. That's just their priority.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like everything is up to us. We get to decide if we're in a relationship.
Yes.
And I've written about, like, consent is a pretty hot topic, right? Like, do we consent to sex, or do we? My consent matters before anyone else's, because if I don't consent, they don't get to do whatever it is with me that they want to do. It's that simple. And that is that first year after I got out of my abusive marriage, that's the thing that I focused in on. What did I do during that 15 years I spent with that man?
15. Wow.
15 years. What did I do that kept me in that relationship and allowed that abuse to happen? Now, let me be clear. I'm not taking the blame.
Sure.
He still did all the things he did. However, the first time he took money from my wallet and I allowed it, that led to the second time and the third time, and then him taking money from our accounts and so on and so forth. So knowing that I could have stopped it so much earlier by recognizing the signs of what I do not want in my life, didn't take the blame off of him, but allowed me to look at my future relationships and to be
Yes.
responsible for who I choose and what I allow into my life.
Right. Lesson learned.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Huge.
Wow. That's a good I love that. I love the exercise that you provided for my listeners as well. And I'm hopeful that they will, yes, to put it to action, because it's going to be, like you said, they could be in a relationship now or not, but it's just good to make sure that that they write those things, what fills me up, what drains me, and then what an ideal relationship looks like. That's phenomenal.
And writing them is so important. Like, because we can just think them, but if you're anything like me, you know, I'm 50, my memory is kind of,
yeah,
you know, like I can think that, but it won't stick.
Exactly.
But writing it out, and we can write it, which is one part of the brain, and then we visually can see it, and then we can read it to ourselves. All of those things will help us really figure out what sticks.
Yes, exactly. To retain it. Exactly. Now, Heather, so you coach?
Yeah.
Do you have workshops? Is that correct?
I do. I have the Take No SH*T workshop, which, by the way, so this is fun. The workshop is $197, and we're going to be starting it again. I think it's October 16th, Monday, October 16th. And we actually have something that's going to go up within the next week that's going to allow people to earn points towards that workshop. Every point they earn is $1 off, just by sharing information about my boundaries book and boundaries in general on the internet.
Oh, nice.
So, you know, you could get a $197 workshop, you know, $30 off. You could get it, you know, $100 off. You could get it free.
What a great
if
incentive.
you just tell people about, you know, my book, about the workshop, about boundaries, whatever.
Right. Oh my goodness, that's great. A great incentive. Wow. Well, you know what, Heather, I could talk about this more long, but my audience, my listeners, how do they get in touch with you?
My.curiouser.life. That's the easiest way. Everything is there. You can contact me directly from there. That's where you can find links to my social media. That's where you can find other podcast appearances I've been on. That's where you can find the workshop and the app and the coaching and the book and everything.
Well, I believe, based on my listeners, they're going to love this. And relationships are just big anyway. People love to talk about relationships. And hey, without them, who will we be? So we always in some type of relationship. So I wanted to just thank you for your wisdom, your authenticity, your personality, and everything was just great. And for my listeners, if you know of anybody, which I know you do, that would love to have an interest in this talk that we had today about I think I like saying the word craptaculous boundaries. Please share it. You also know that I'm on every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks a bunch for listening. Heather, thank you for being my guest. You were wonderful. And everybody, bye for now, and God bless.